Herzlich willkommen zum Africa für Einmanns podcast, and of course a very warm welcome also to our English-speaking audience. We are in Windhoek, Namibia with another episode for our special season. Africa für Einmanns goes Namibia, und wie ihr im Intro wisst, es ist bilingual gehalten. We keep this episode of course in English, but in case there's going to be some German intervention, stick with us of course, but maybe just to give us some context and introduce also what we're doing. Chandri, what is the topic for this episode?
Yeah, Frederick, so I think about a month ago, I received a call from you informing me that you'll be visiting Namibia, and I just thought to myself, wouldn't it be so much better if you actually did something of value with this little holiday of yours? And I think that led up to us discussing the podcast and developing a podcast on German-Namibian relations, because on a micro level, that's really us, right? German-Namibian relations. You're a German person. We met abroad. And we became close friends after that. And I think that this podcast is really just a montage of that friendship, but with a zone in to the relations between Namibia and Germany.
Very nice. And of course, we're not doing this alone. We are having today with us Miss Natalie Russmann. A very warm welcome also to you, ma'am. And you are the head of the, so to say, Auslandsbüro der Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung hier in Namibia, zuständig auch für Angola und mit uns heute dabei für das Thema German Organizations in Namibia. Herzlich willkommen auch Ihnen heute.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really glad to be here today. I think it's a very good idea to produce this podcast, Africa's for Allemans, and I think it's also important to address this to our young audience.
Yes, absolutely. And maybe because, I mean, we have heard about KAS in the past, and I think especially in Namibia, Chandra, you have told me about KAS also various times, as it's a very active organization here in Namibia, but maybe just for an outsider, Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung, okay, the name associates the first chancellor of Germany after the Second World War, and it relates also to the Conservative Democratic Party in Germany. But what is actually KAS, and what do they do here in Namibia?
Okay, let me start from the beginning. You already mentioned some information about Konrad-Adenauer Foundation, which are correct. We are a political foundation linked with the Christian Democratic Union Party. Linked meaning we are not depending on them. We are free when it comes to our program, but of course we share the value of the Christian Democratic Union Party. And to give you maybe a bit more information about the system of political foundations or politische Stiftungen in Deutschland, because it's a bit unique. I think it only exists in Germany. So we have political foundations, so many as there are political parties in the parliament represented in the Bundestag parliament. And and this political foundation, politische Stiftung, do also have an international department, and under this international department, internationale Zusammenarbeit, international cooperation, is one how I put it?
Network or framework?
One framework, and we have a lot of offices across the globe, not only in Namibia, but also in Asia or in Latin America, and and the idea is about to promote democracy, rule of law, justice, peace in this country. And that very much depends on the level of democracy which exists already in the country we are operating. And also the environment we are in. So, and everything is based on partnership. That's very important to understand. It's kind of, we are giving a kind of platform. And our mandate is indeed promoting democracy, rule of law, social market economy, political party.
Yes. That's,
these are our values. And and this is also our values in Namibia. Maybe I keep it so far.
If I may get in there, what would you say what mechanisms do you use in terms of your programming to be able to implement these values that KAS optimizes?
First of all, you have to understand the country itself. What is the culture of the country? And what are the possibilities and opportunities in that country? Is it different if you're operating in a small country or in a huge country with densely populated country like Namibia, and also the level of democracy it's already achieving. The instruments we are using are workshop, conferences, dialogue, international dialogue, exchange programs, also among politicians, scholarship program. I think this is something really important to mention, that we try also to focus more and more on the youth, because Africa is a young continent and its future going to be decided by the young generation and by the elder. So this is also a kind of shift that we have to do, not just looking at our older children, but also especially among the young. Yeah, and seminars, publications also to mention. Now we also want to inform the public. Our mandate is also to inform, to make them, how I put it, citizens that are aware about their rights. And you can only be aware of your rights if you understand a bit about it. Yeah. This is also the mandate we are carrying.
Central there.
And since this idea of political related parties, also es ist ja quasi eine CDU-nahe Stiftung, es ist ja keine CDU-Stiftung, does it also translate into the Namibian landscape of parties? Because at least we spoke about it this morning, right? That SWAPO, technically the leading Namibian party, has a connection to the SPD in Germany. So then does that also play a role that you indirectly also target specific parties here, or is it more going holistically for all of Namibia?
We are a political foundation, and I have to emphasize this.
Okay.
We are not a humanitarian organization. These do also exist, Miserio, Brot für die Welt, und so weiter. So we, of course, our mandate is also to look at alliances or like-minded parties, put it that way. And this is really something which is very difficult nowadays. We are often also speaking of shrinking areas or where we cannot get in because the opposition is restricted in one or the other country.
Just for context, CDU is not in charge anymore in Germany right now. They're in the opposition, so that just to clear up, it is right now in an unusual situation, right? After 16 years, the CDU voter base has also significantly reduced. Yes. Sorry.
And maybe to get a bit deeper into that topic, we look at political parties, so-called partner parties. And it's not a secret that here in Namibia we do work or try to work closely with the main opposition, which is the PDM party, the Popular Democratic Movement. Why? Because more or less their manifesto is in line with ours. It doesn't mean that we do not accept the other parties like SWAPO or LPM, NUDO and so forth. In the general thing, we support a more multi-party approach. This is something difficult to transport, because then I've often been asked, why are you just supporting the one party and not us?
Yes.
No? Then I say, look, here in Namibia we have different political organizations or Stiftungen operating. You can choose. This is the democracy. But in general, we are promoting democracy and elections and voting, and it's up to the voters whom they would like to vote for. But and we're also supporting very much and working together in a close relationship to the Namibian Parliament. This is, by the way, one of our flagship or strongest partner, and I would say that almost the main part of our work. As long as I'm the director, I always put so much effort in that. Why? Because it is something really unique also. We do not have many, or not so many African nations where we have such a close contact to the parliament. And as you understand democracy, the parliament is kind of the Herzschlag der Demokratie, the heart of the democracy. So, and it's so important to uplift and to facilitate this organ as one organ of the state. Same as media, of course, is important, but parliament is really important because it's the lawmaking organ, and this is also one of our main focus. Beside, of course, our engagement also in other areas like civil society and so forth, But
interesting.
So with that, basically, it's really answering that question or I would assume that question of Frederick. that if you do work with an institution like Parliament, which is a multi-party institution, then that support eventually is rendered down towards every party.
Right.
But for capacity purposes, I would assume, and not necessarily political campaign or so on, but to build capacity to be able to ensure that democracy is sustained.
And that could be run by everybody, that parliament. I mean, even if there's a Bundestagspräsident or the equivalent here, I mean, that is party independent then, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, and our focus is also long-term, not
Long-term.
short-term. So you know how things in politics works. Sometimes the one party wins, next time maybe the other one, and then the opposition. Like we are now experienced being in the opposition, which is after 16 years quite unique. But it's also an important experience. It's democracy, and we have to achieve sustainability in our work. And this you will not achieve if you just connect it to a person or a single organization.
Yes.
So you need something which hopefully exists for a long time.
Well, KAS has been in Namibia for quite a number of years. You've mentioned these values, especially democratic values, that is your main mandate to promote these within the countries that you operate in. How would you evaluate the culture of democracy and the political culture overall in Namibia? Where would you place it after you having spent for 2 years now as a country director here in Namibia, but also your predecessors and the work that KAS has done over the years? How would you assess that landscape?
Maybe out of curiosity, relative to German, so we get the comparison a bit, because I mean, if it's just descriptive, I think our audience likes to know.
Well, the level of democracy, I would say it's quite high in comparison to other African nations here in the continent. If you just see Uganda, Tanzania, or other, or Angola, we're also covering Angola, where the level of democracy, I just put it a bit carefully, is not in that progress. So we do not really have a separation of power, and the media is also not that flexibility, and the freedom of speech is also not always there, and so forth. So in that regard, I would say Namibia is quite far. The elections are mainly fair, I would say so. So there are international observers coming into the country. We have the different institutions. But there is, of course, still space for improvement. So and you cannot say everything is nice. It can change quickly nowadays. No? So I would see, regarding improvement, for instance, which, if we look closer at political parties, for instance, I think there's a lot of things to do. So their capacity is not at that level that they can exist or they can really execute what they want to do. I think in regard of program, manifesto, and so forth. So it's in the facilitation of political parties, mainly opposition, I think there is still a lot of things to do. Also regarding of things like coalition. I mean, there will never be a change, or it will be difficult to really have a change in a political party arena without going into coalition. That's something, I think it's also a cultural thing. Because you first look at who's going to be the leader of that coalition or that party. And if you start like this, it's going to be difficult. Rather than starting by trying to find common values, common program, if the political opposition party starts with that first, and then secondly looking at who's going to be the leader, probably running the campaign, then it would be maybe much easier to also have a really vibrant democracy, which also means from time to time changing government.
But you guys have not changed government ever, right? It has always been SWAPO?
We've had that on local government.
On local government.
That's where we've really learned a lot over the
yes, KAS region you mentioned, right?
The city of Windhoek. KAS region is controlled by AfA, but the city of Windhoek, the capital city, the municipal council is currently run by a coalition, and it has been turbulent because we don't really have a history of coalition.
Exactly.
Of course, politically we've had, more single-party leadership or multi-party leadership, but a single party getting the majority to be able to rule. But I definitely agree with you, Mr. Russmann. I think it is a political culture thing, but I think it's cultivated also over time. I mean, even in countries where it is working, such as Germany, if you look at the Bundestag and how parties are able to form coalitions there, it took time to get to.
It's a matter of time.
And to be fair, I mean, the German model is also extremely party-oriented, right? I mean, in other European countries, I'm not sure what the political foundation infrastructure there is, if they have also party-based institutions here, or if, I mean, France or Italy or so, probably they will just have some form of sub-organization of the development agencies or something. So I think it's also very German party strength that we tend to have, and of course from the coalition then only comes the head of the government, and that is, I guess, also a bit different with you guys, right? It's more of a person-oriented maybe to some extent at the end.
Yeah. No, I think also for me, when I look at parties in the German Bundestag, I always look at them as clear ideological differences. You can tell the ideological differences very clearly. While in Namibia, the political party space is also crowded, some would say.
New enter, new leave.
A lot of clear ideological differences between all of these parties. So there is that element that comes with that popularity contest, where you find leaders are sort of more after positions within a coalition government, as opposed to trying to push party positions of policy to be able to lead the discussions within there. But is KAS doing anything in particular right now, now that we're on this topic, to strengthen this culture of multi-party governance through coalitions?
Well, we might enter into in one topic which is quite crucial. That's about education, and it all starts with education, and also political education to bring some information to the younger generations or to the students or learners. What does it mean to vote? I do have the experience that Namibians are very much engaged in social things, engagement and taking care for each other, for the communities and so forth. There's a really a commitment. I really appreciate and admire that very much. But it ends often when it comes to the political level. Or with politicians, I don't want to do anything. With political party, I don't want to do anything. Even knowing that the parliament do have instruments like petitions or where you can raise your voice and connect with your, start on a local basis, with the constitutional councils or town councils, and address the burning things in your communities, and not just describe it and try to get funds and then it's end. And no, it's not. And I think we have, especially now where election is around the corner, we have to educate our public. What does it mean to vote? What can you vote? And this is what we are doing. We have some publications, very easy to read. We also will translate it to the different languages here. That's also one point to mention, that in terms of education, it's important also to transport it in the local languages.
Of course.
Since, here in Windhoek we speak English, but once you get a bit far away, I've been attending a workshop where I do understand nothing. So so it's important to then also translate the message that we want to bring to the public. And as I say, it's important to explain how does a democratic state work? What are the arms? What is the role of the ministries? What's the role of the parliament? What's the role of the president? And what does it mean when you vote? And what does it mean when you not vote? And I think this is a fear I do have a bit, that people are too reluctant or too disinterested and not going forward for election. And we as Germans know what happens then. No? So radicalism or radical parties may take over more easily. And and that's what we are doing. Also in general, not specifically for party, but at the beginning one have to inform the public to give them the choice, and of course the outcome is then up to them. I think there's still a lot to do about that.
That's probably also this. I mean, I always compare it a bit with South Africa, where you also have this ANC reign basically continues since in the 90s. That if you have never seen any change, that it also, I guess, gives a bit of reduced empowerment to be part of something that will eventually also at least change once the government coalition or something. I don't know, but maybe just to understand for me a bit better the voting system here. It's not obligatory, right? It's voluntary voting, or is it? Or do you have to go voting? It's voluntary. And after what age? What age does it start?
After the age of 18.
18. Okay, then it's the same basically as in Germany. Okay, interesting.
It will be an interesting time. No? I mean, the campaign will. It's already started, actually.
And with the demography here, there's a lot of new voters now coming, right? That's
for me, one of the things that makes me very proud of the political culture in Namibia is it stays dynamic.
Yeah.
We stay on our feet. You know, if you look at what happened in the 2000s, we had an opposition party called COD. It was one of the strongest, the official opposition party for a couple of years. Now it's completely out of existence.
Okay.
And now you have other parties. So there's always a dynamism.
There is a dynamic, okay.
In Namibian politics, and it comes with a democratic culture as well.
Right.
Because once you see the play field getting more loaded and more people participating here, one can really say that, well, there is a democratic culture here. And I think it's something we should nurture regardless of which side of the political
We could be thankful for that and make use of it. It's the most important thing. I mean, in Namibia you can say the things. Of course, there are sensitive areas, and it's also the way how you say it. But you can address things and discuss it.
Yes,
we can have a workshop on election here right now. So there's nobody gonna observe us, or you're not gonna be punished later on. No? And so I think that this is a great advantage. And the other one is, of course, also the political stability. And
But those interfere, right? I mean, once you have a very vivid conversation, and this also forms stability at the end, right? If ideas are expressed, I mean, I really enjoyed that also the last time I came here in Windhoek. You have the feeling every person knows over two corners someone who's involved in somewhere. Maybe it's a bit Windhoek, and maybe it's just my perspective, but it's very politicized, but in a positive, diverse way, right? Nobody's afraid to touch certain areas. It's quickly also easygoing, controversial. I mean, I might be guilty in that also. But I really enjoy this dynamicism here in Windhoek. To be fair, maybe it's a bit different if you go into the many remote or more remote areas, if they feel less supported or so. But very interesting. I'm going to follow up on that election for sure.
But I really just want to quickly dive into. I think you gave an overview of KAS and the nature of political foundations, and I've noticed that Germany has such a wide representation of these organizations in Namibia.
All parties are here, right?
You have the GIZ, you have...
you mean overall, yes.
And Snyder, you have KAS.
Rosa Luxemburg, I read also is here, right? It's also Stiftung, no?
Not that I'm aware of.
No? Okay, it's just, okay, I thought.
They might be trying
to LFM, I thought, something like this, no? To the
it's just Friedrich Ebert F. Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung and Hans Seidel. That's from the political foundations or Stiftungen. And then, of course, various German...
GIZ is here, governmental operation. It's for me interesting. All of these organizations essentially receive funding from the same source, which is...
It's BMZ, right? It's from the Entwicklungsministerium.
That's most of them that I know of, that I've confirmed. Is it really necessary to have so many different organizations? Because I mean, I'm sure if I go to FES, they would also encapsulate the values of democracy. Yes. Is it really necessary for there to be such... I almost want to ask, is there fragmentation in terms of German development work in Namibia, and is it spread out between these organizations? Can you talk to us a bit about that diversity?
Well, that's an interesting question. Of course, there are many organizations here, governmental organizations like the GIZ, the KfW.
KfW, natürlich, Entwicklungsbank.
Then the political foundation, and not to forget the various smaller Vereine who are also doing a great job, great contribution. Sometimes forget them in these what you call it, informal settlements or helping schools, more individually motivated and driven. There are also a lot here in Namibia. I discover while being here. So yes, indeed, there's a lot, but I mean we should be thankful for that. I would say it has maybe something to do with the infrastructure itself. As I said, Namibia is politically quite stable. We have no war here. We just need to go further up the continent, and we see what happened there. If you just see in West Africa, one breakdown after the other. So also an area which has been highly supported by the Western alliances. You see what happens in Mali, for instance, now. France is out, it's almost just Russia. So it is also about talking about geopolitical interest in the continent. And it's the infrastructure, the good roads that Namibia's offer for investment, for instance. So these do play a role, and we should also not forget, of course, the historical relationship.
Yes. It's speak about the commitment that the
right. This, if you know somebody or you are related to someone who lives here, or you speak the language, you hear the language, you see the buildings, you see German
Straße, überall.
Straße, then you feel you get an identification with that country, maybe easier than with the country where I am here. Yeah. It's completely different. Yeah. No? This is a potential, something positive. Of course, also something which can complicate sometimes things. No? So it's a two-sided medal, no? How we say.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, right.
So doppelseitig. Genau.
No? And sometimes it's maybe for those who maybe to keep the institutions aside, to settle to Namibia, it's a kind of nostalgia also. No? So, country with so much space, the nature is still intact and untouched, and we're all looking for, or dream sometimes for this kind of destination, and Namibia do offer this. No? So, I would say so, but also the potential regarding when we now come to the recent topics like green hydrogen or renewable energy. I mean, where else? No? I mean, the sun is shining almost. Today it was raining a bit, but the sun is shining almost the entire year. The wind is blowing in Windhoek sometimes too much that you get into turbulences while landing at the airport. So we have this potential for renewable energy, and so this also attracts a lot of support because the government also wants to support business and economy, and if the circumstances are good. So, for instance, the Minister Habeck was recently just visiting Namibia to sign different investment contracts and so forth. And this is that is also something we have to work on, and maybe also to give some. We are talking about the positive things about there are a lot of challenges as well when it comes to this investment and of course the stability, the democracy. But on the other hand, we have a lot of danger as well. A lot of things that might hurt or diminish these values, which is this economic situation, which is really worth to talk about, and also the climate of the economy, which needs a lot of boost in regards of reducing the bureaucracy, in regard of empowering SMEs, empowering business. About education, we just talked. The education system is not really ready for what's needed, for what's being requested for the market, and that's maybe the difficult things about the high number of unemployment among the youth, and this is a danger to democracy.
Yes. Maybe just before we go into the specific investment projects and talk a bit more with numbers, let's take a quick break here, and then we will be right back for you guys with a follow-up of the second half.
Mit uns bist du on air. Pool Podcast Agency. Deine Stimme in der Welt.
Welcome back, guys, the second part, and before we get into the investment episode, I want to use also this moment maybe just to ask you, Chandri, what do you think when we tell you of a Konrad-Adenauer Foundation? What does foundation do with you? What's your association with it?
Well, for me personally, I think it's definitely an organization that organizes funds to be able to carry out projects. In general, if you ask me what a foundation is. But I think the question maybe is around KAS, right? What I thought about KAS before actually engaging it. I think that there is a lot of work done in terms of visibility of the foundations, especially KAS. I mean, we see KAS in the media. We even see a project now with KAS and the Namibian radio station on corruption watch, I believe, which you'll talk about. But I've seen the visibility, but it really took me time to understand the programming. And I think...
Is there maybe like a project you can give us?
Namibian boy from Lutherans, right?
Yes.
For instance, like me.
What's the first encounter for you?
It's really through the media and hearing about these programs, but on a very superficial level. So, Ms. Natalie, maybe the question is, how do you communicate your projects and programs on a less sophisticated level so that the ordinary man on the ground understands it, or the young boy in Lutherans, or the young girl in Ongwadiba that would like to get involved with KAS?
Maybe let me first get back to the name of the organization, or the classification, better to say. Indeed, the name Stiftung or foundation, maybe it's not a correct sometimes translation. Many people also in Germany do associate Stiftung with a well-funded organization. We know Bill Gates Foundation,
philanthropy
and so forth. This is not what we are. We are more or less, or from the juristical definition, a Verein, and we get our funds from the Ministry for Development and Cooperation, and there are also some other ministries engaged, but to keep it really simple for the public, it's taxpayers' money.
Taxpayers' money.
And this is the specific conditions under we have to work, and since we are dealing with public funds, we are obligated to justify every single penny that we are spending, and because it's from the public, from the taxpayers. And with that, there is always a great or big control and observation among different institutions who are looking at our programs, also about the impact. Is it worth spending that in that program and rather in that program? And we are also obligated to the procurement. So up to a certain amount, we have to look at quotes and also allowing competition in the market. I mean, social market economy means also competition.
Do you source all your materials locally from Namibia, your procurement?
Yes, we try. No? So if there is everything available here, so we have to buy the things here, even we employ locals.
Yeah.
So there might be in there an exemption, it's a technical thing which we won't get here, but we really need
your drone, AliExpress, how many weeks? I mean, it's not that
specialized.
For instance, but I mean, it's also it's about developing and development, and you cannot support development if you just import everything from Europe. Also regarding the employees, so we are working with Namibians from different cultural background, Hereros or Shivambos, African speaking, so our office is really quite diverse indeed, and it's also a challenge sometimes. But this is all about, I think this is important because there's an entwicklungspolitischer Ansatz in our work.
You translate
so
that.
for the translation.
Exactly, subtitles.
But coming back to your question, how we transport our programs to the people of Namibia, we are working on different levels, starting with the parliament, politicians, economists, academics. Then we are working a lot also with women, empowering women, and it's also one of our target and of our focus, and also in the villages. So we also have workshop, in the rural areas, and trying to pick up their topics and bring it to the political decision makers, transporting and networking and engaging with different angles of the countries. I think this is also our focus when it comes to working here in Namibia. So it's quite diverse, different levels, rural areas up to the capital, up to the ministries and everything. But also we do not forget the people in the villages, because I mean Namibia is also an agriculture country where agriculture plays a big role. And we cannot neglect that. And we just recently finished a program called One World Without Hunger, Eine Welt ohne Hunger, which deals with the rights of women when it comes to access to land. We all know the situation in Namibia.
Yes.
Now we have
Land issue.
We have a lot of single mothers who are responsible for their kids alone and for the family. And when it comes to breakages in a partnership, then also the access to land is no longer there. They lose their land,
especially through customary means.
Right. And and there is a difference between the so-called constitutional right and the customary rights. And there's also one thing we are looking at to align both, so they are not contradicting to others. Yes. And coming to that, we also look at the Namibian constitution, which is really a lighthouse. We call it a Leuchtturm. Here on the continent.
Why? Because it's so new, or?
Namibia is a young democracy, so the independence not so long ago, 1990, similar to the fall of the Berlin Wall. But the constitution itself is very modern and having a lot of aspects of a modern society, put it easy like that. And allowing really a democratic life in Namibia. But the thing is, the rights and the laws is one thing, the implementation, understanding is another thing, and the practical things in the rural areas is another thing, where you more look at the local authorities as your leading example, maybe, or whom things are discussed and decided as well, and Windhoek is far away. And this is also one of the challenges.
I definitely agree. I think coming from a small town, and maybe I could engage you, Frederick, on that, is one of the things often, one of the dominant narratives, right, when you get exposure to organizations such as KAS or to their work, is always this debate as to the bread and butter issues, right, that most people face, especially in smaller, more rural towns. Where they have less access and mobility as someone in the city would have, whether it's towards employment and so. What do you think is really the balancing factor to be able to connect those people with this value of democracy? Because for them it's really something up in the air. It's very theoretical and abstract for them, right? How do we bridge that gap to get more people in rural areas interested in perhaps programs such as the one that you were speaking about, rural women getting access to land?
Is this addressed to me? Okay, I mean, I would have shot that back. Yeah, thanks. Open the stage. So I would say the German narrative, to take that position, would be then, of course, to engage within local politics, and maybe there is some accountability of members of parliament to their constituency, where you have access then to also the formation of legal frameworks, etc. So that there should be somehow a connection between you and even the federal level in some abstract way. Of course, I think it's difficult to give the German example, because we have extreme high density of Großstädte, cities of more than 100,000 places. So the distance here, I mean, we drove from Lüderitz back. I mean, there was maybe Kettmannshoop, and after 6 hours Rehoboth, and that was maybe it. And those are not Großstädte, let's be honest. Those are not Großstädte. And so I think the proximity to at least some center of economic or political power in some sense, right, is very important to also feel that, because looking into other countries like England or France even, where you have this extreme concentration on the big capitals, this proximity disadvantages very strongly in these countries also the more remote places. I mean, so I feel like Namibia in this case is more maybe comparable to something like maybe the British model or the French model, where your Windhoek centralization is much stronger. And on the other hand, unfortunately, maybe some more rural issues fallen über den Tisch, genau.
No, definitely. And I think, Ms. Russmann, you could maybe speak to us about that. You specifically, I'm really interested in this program where you help these women. How does that really work? How do you help them attain the land, and what has been your uptake? Can you tell us a few numbers? How many women have been able to empower through this program?
Well, how does it work? We mainly giving them information about their rights. So it starts also by introducing the Namibian constitutions and to look closer also at the...
So you give them classes on the constitution?
Right, classes, but we also integrate the authorities, the local authorities, because I think it doesn't make sense if you just gather the women together without having their counterpart in there.
Yes.
So of course it's their workshop just with women, but we in most of them there we integrate the local authorities. because it's also important that the local authorities are engaged in that. And we close up that program with a booklet called Conflict Resolution Booklet, which gives quite nice examples of cases of these land right issues, and how to deal with them. So there are kind of examples, and along these examples, more or less.
Does it take the cultural context in consideration?
Yes. It takes it so far that of course we're doing it in the languages. In English, it would not be understandable. Yes. Of course, it's difficult to really find out about the impact or to see the impact. Now, this is something we cannot count it. It's not like we are not selling cars.
Yes.
If they say, okay, VW, has the best.
500,000
So now let's make it really difficult to see the impact. We only see the impact probably by the reflection in the media, their feedback, and also requesting for more kind of this workshop, requesting for more of this kind of publications and so forth. So and about that more we have more participants than we could cover. So this shows us, okay, there is a demand, and this is also how we work. We keep it also a bit flexible. Of course, we have our principles to navigate and for our main orientation, but we also have to see what happens outside in the world, and what happens in Namibia, and we have to adapt our program to that. So it's not like a written book already. So I always keep space for
local context.
For local context and current context. Now, for instance, the water issue, it's a quite pressing thing. How every community got its water and how to manage water. So we see this is a pressing issue, also taken up by the politicians. So we get into that. And that's how we pick up the things. And you're asking for numbers. I cannot tell you about, so much about the numbers. What we have about, I think we also try to capacitate the civil society organization, which are filling the gaps that the government cannot fill. We all know we are in times of limited budget, meaning that the government cannot do all their obligations. Sometimes it is, I won't get too deep by that. Often it's also an issue of budget. And there's management as well, knowledge and so forth. But and the civil society organization do a lot in that terms. But we have to capacitate them. It starts with organization, how to do management, how to raise funds, how to set a meeting. So simple things. Capacity building, and the better they are equipped, the more they can serve the nation, and especially in the rural areas. And I think we are about covering 40 or up to 60 CSOs, and mainly also driven by women. This was
that's also indirect impact you have.
Right.
What do you do specifically for young people? You spoke earlier about that KAS understands that the demographic of Africa, and Namibia in particular, is very young, the majority of the population. What do you do specifically to empower young people?
Well, what we do specifically, of course, to engage them in our activities, to educate them about to participate, to feel empowered to participate in the issues of the country. But to tell you the truth, and coming back to what we are talking about earlier, I do see the economic situation as one source for many issues in Namibia, GBV and so forth. And we can talk about GBV from morning till dawn, and we see it in the newspaper every day what happens.
GBV, what is
context,
this?
Gender-based violence.
Gender-based, okay, I get that, yes.
Essentially violence against women.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a real topic here in Namibia. And if you just look at the newspaper, every day there's a case of child abuse, rape, or all kind of this.
Do you have similar experiences in Germany, similar challenges in Germany?
I was just going to say, I'm sure it's not completely different. Maybe it's not in such easy way to portray it in the media. To some extent it might be a problem. But I mean, it's a global phenomenon, right? So, sorry, what were you about to say?
I think we can just frame it under violence. It's violence.
Violence, yes, in any form.
Case, it's violence, and and it has to do with the economic situation in Namibia. And it is really difficult, of course, to talk about democracy, to get them engaged and to be participative. If you don't know how to survive the day. I mean, it's just simple. If you don't have anything on your table to eat, and you might not be interested in climate issues or whom to vote and so forth. So that's why I always say the economic situation or the empowering economy also means at the same time that you strengthen the democracy. It goes hand in hand. So, and that's what we try to do with the youth. We do have an SME program where we try to see that, or to encourage them in that way, to see that not only government is providing for jobs.
Yes. But that's a big point, Ashande. I mean, you might hate me if we've had these pro-contra market conversations, but my kind of guess is that this also relates to what you said earlier about people not involving in politics, because from my understanding, at least in Namibia, politics is seen as a career. Like people go in the public sector for finding financial stability. Yes, but the economic...
It's bread and butter for the day.
But the economic stability doesn't come from the government or from the public sector. They can facilitate, but the let's say in the sense of lacking a better indicator, the GDP or so is not generated by the government. So you need for that some form of a free market or at least active private sector to then also have a government which produces. And from my understanding, at least of the cases, I mean, we've heard this about the iPhones in the parliament now, etc. This doesn't attract people to go into politics, I mean, only unless they want to have an iPhone.
Of course, but that's also because of the way the media frames politics in Namibia, and then we must be cognizant of that. I think even in the work of KAS, I think it's important that while it's important to hold politicians accountable, politics has been framed in this manner that it becomes unsavory for some Namibians. But I think even beyond that, just to engage you on your comment of the economy, yes, the economy is definitely in most countries, liberal economies are private sector led, but Namibia has a unique history as well. And the state has a unique responsibility because of that unique history, that in certain instances it must assert itself.
We are Germans. We are the most involved state experience you can see. I mean, we are not spoiled in any case.
There is a responsibility on the state to ensure that economic growth is sustainable, but not beyond sustainability, that it actually truly brings this Gini coefficient down, because we are
incentives, right?
One of the most unequal countries, and this is a result also. Germany also has a responsibility towards that. You as a young German, because it is also as a result of years and years of the policies of colonialism leading up to apartheid that led up to Namibia. And that's why I think the work that you do in Namibia is so important. But it is important that there must be a connection towards that young person or that ordinary Namibian that might not find these values as a priority at the moment, but that they have an understanding of what it could lead to and the better future that they may have from that.
Okay, just to continue my devil's advocate here a little bit, then that is the young Namibian benefiting from it. How would a young German benefit from that activity? Is there any sort that KAS Namibia, is there any form that, I mean, it's in the end the taxpayers generated by Germans to some extent, right? Does this bring aside maybe of some interaction? How would you
Of course, I mean, we are living in a global world, so I mean, the problems doesn't end at the border. I mean, let's see the climate issues and the climate change. It doesn't end just where it happens. So it's happened all over, and also the issue of unemployment. I mean, we can say Namibia is still too far from Europe, so the people are also very bodenständig. They like their country, they feel home. I just remembered recently when we have our dialect program to Germany, they were all happy to get back home. Yeah, so,
Der deutsche Michel.
Colombians love Namibia.
Yeah, but no matter how, I mean, I see it globally. It can be very quickly become an issue for Europe as well.
Yes.
And it would be very egoistic just to see our comfortable zone. I mean, we see what happens in Europe with the war and the impact. The Ukraine war also have an impact on the continent.
But I think beyond that, Ms. Russmann, I find that argument a bit provocative in the sense that Germans and Europeans must have some of direct threat to buy in. I think just the global responsibility you have to ensure peace and stability, regardless of whatever consequences unemployment might have on your own borders, on your own economy, that you have a responsibility to contribute towards a world that is more
humanitarian attitude.
Yes.
So of course we are human beings. I mean, you all know how it is. If something happens and the things become pressing, then we react, then we invent things. COVID make it possible that we are all now, can communicate digitally and have. This would not happen. I mean, we are human beings. If you are pressed in a corner and if you are really in a dangerous situation, things might happen.
It needs disruption.
Before.
Yes.
Or the vaccine was invented within a year. That was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is how in politics is not very much different. More just a bit more more complicated, but more or less the same. It's as I said, we cannot just see the world also either German and Namibian or whoever as just our country and that's it. I mean, we see very quickly how much it can have an impact on in front of our door. Peace, what we take for granted. Yeah, I mean, it can happen. We have the Angolan, migration situation, and many other things can happen. And South Africa, Namibia, I mean, we are so much dependent on South Africa.
Yes.
So if South Africa is shaking, Namibia is also shaking. So we cannot just see the things
separated by
isolation.
No, that's not longer the case. Yes. And also take the potential. We can see the potential globally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially among the youth who are connected with different devices very quickly, much more quicker than politicians.
That's part of this. That's part of this idea also. I mean, in the end, we met through a youth organization, student debating. It's for the youth, right? So
possible where the
Yes.
Could not imagine before.
But I think this is the exact, how do you say, not controversy, but maybe like a topic with different perspectives that we have to develop, especially now what we see, maybe energy topics, which are German, Namibian tourism. I think that's a good cliffhanger for the next episode to go a bit deeper in that. And for the moment, I thank you very much for participating with us today. Looking forward to some further engagement. Chandre, the last words to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Russmann. I think I'm impressed by your work, but always there is room for improvement. And I always say that I'm hopeful that all development organizations, regardless of where they are from, have the heart and interest of Namibians at heart. Not Namibia per se as a country or as a state, but the heart and interest of ordinary Namibians. And I think through those connections with ordinary Namibians, that's how we can truly strengthen this relationship.
Absolutely. I think with every minute, every day, we work here in different areas with all our partners, and we depend very much on the partners.
Yes.
We are bringing an element to uplift and to maintain the relationship between Namibia and Germany.
Let's do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deutsche Organisation in Namibia. Ich glaube, das war ein guter Überblick. Zum einen, woher kommt das Ganze? Was hat es für eine Hintergründe, auch mit den politischen Ursprüngen und vor allem natürlich, was sind die verschiedenen Areas, die das Ganze betrifft? Ich habe sehr viel dazu gelernt. Ich hoffe, ihr auch. Vielleicht, um das Ganze nochmal auf Englisch zu machen. Chandre, what did you take away from this?
No, I think it's pretty clear that German organizations have a place and space in Namibia, and that they play an important role in nurturing the relationship, but also that they can bring you and me together.
In the end,
as
true.
young people,
as
ordinary citizens of our countries, and I think that is really the message that this episode takes out today. Right, so from me, Chandre, thank you guys very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and follow for the rest of the episodes. Frederick?
Vielen Dank, das war Afrika für Allmanns für die heutige Folge. Bleibt dran und verpasst nicht unsere nächsten Episoden hier aus Windhoek, Namibia.
This is Africa.